Position, the member from Simcoe.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise this afternoon for a few moments to speak to Bill 40, the Agriculture Insurance Act. We all know how vital the agriculture industry is to Ontario. With more rural members than any other party, the PC caucus knows that firsthand and better than other parties in this House, I think. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this bill will allow crop insurance to be expanded to cover livestock. Livestock insurance is long overdue. If passed, this bill will allow farmers who choose to pay insurance premiums to tap into the larger pool of funds to compensate for their loss of their livestock. However, this bill is not perfect. This bill does not actually create these programs. Instead, it allows them to be created by regulation. If this bill passes, it's important that the minister implement these programs swiftly. Not only does the minister control the timing of these programs, but he controls which commodities will be eligible. I would encourage the minister to make sure that he does not pick and choose only a few commodities to be eligible for the programs. If cows are included but sheep are not, we may see farmers abandon sheep altogether. Not only should the main commodities like sheep, hogs, and cows be included in the program, but this is an opportunity to extend the program to some lesser farmed commodities like exotic animals or smaller birds like quails and pheasants. I encourage the minister to be open and listen to all commodity groups who may wish to be included. Which groups will be included is just one of the many questions left to be answered. Another important question is what constitutes a death? Will the program cover animals that are killed by coyotes or predators? Will it cover animals that die of natural causes? Will it cover stillbirths or animals that have to be put down because of serious injury? These are important questions which we hope will be answered soon. For anyone who's ever been around sheep, they know that sheep unfortunately die easily. Sheep have been known to suffocate in the snow or to even eat themselves to death. One farmer in my riding joked, the easiest part of a sheep's life is its death. These are all the things that the average member of this House wouldn't necessarily find out on their own, so it's very important to make sure we listen to farmers when deciding what commodities will qualify. Mr. Speaker, I think everyone in this chamber can agree, and it's ironic that when one of the Premier's loyal flock leaves this job, they get a severance, but when a farmer loses a sheep, they get nothing. Another question that requires serious attention from the minister concerns the value of each animal. Breeding animals are commonly valued higher than non-breeding animals. We have all heard of prize racing horses used for breeding, but the same goes for cows and hogs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to bring up an example of this very important problem. In my riding of Simcoe Grey, John and Marie Miller own a very unique dairy farm just outside of Creemore. The Miller's Dairy Farm is not just a farm, but it's also a micro-dairy where they produce and sell their own dairy products. The Millers ship their products across the province, and I'm happy to have met with them just a few months ago to talk about how they can expand into big box grocery stores. What makes the Millers' farm so unique is their use of Jersey cows, which make up only 4% of dairy cows in Ontario. Jersey cows give their milk products a distinct taste that is difficult to replicate. But, Mr. Speaker, the Millers are the perfect example of the questions surrounding this bill. In the unfortunate event of the loss of one of the Millers' unique Jersey cows, would John and Marie be paid more than if they lost a more common Holstein? These are questions which cannot be answered without input and expertise of the many important agricultural groups across this province. The minister must consult with these groups before making decisions that will affect the livelihood of farmers in both Simcoe Grey and throughout Ontario. Speaking of the province's agricultural groups, I'd like to talk briefly about some of those groups. I don't know if my constituents would let me speak, Mr. Speaker, about farming without mentioning the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, of which I've had a 25-year history of good relations. I'd like to take this time to congratulate the OFA's Don McCabe on his recent election as president and thank former President Mark Wales for all his work over the years. I'd also like to congratulate my good friend and constituent Keith Curry on his election as the OFA's Vice President. Keith and I have known each other for many years, and I'm happy to have such a strong advocate for Ontario's farmers within the borders of my riding. When we asked Keith for his thoughts on the bill that we're debating today, he said rather bluntly and accurately, if you have livestock, you have dead stock. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to remember no matter how good a farmer is at their job, there will always be circumstances outside of their control. Be it natural disasters, wild animals, or natural causes, farmers are faced with the difficult challenge of keeping their livestock healthy. They spend countless hours and much money caring for their animals. The government should be there to help them when these unfortunate circumstances occur. For years, this province has recognized the economic impact of the unexpected loss of crops, but we have yet to realize the same costs that come with the loss of livestock. But, Mr. Speaker, it's not just the OFA who should be consulted. The province has many key agricultural groups with thousands of members who have dedicated their lives to farming, be it the Beef Farmers of Ontario, Ontario Pork, or the Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario, to name a few. These organizations know their commodity groups better than anyone, yes, even better than the minister, and should be consulted as much as possible. I was pleased to meet with many of these groups at the ploughing match this year, which was held in my riding in the beautiful village of Ivy. When the member for Holland Norfolk and I, and our party's critic for agriculture, Toby Barrett, and I met with these groups, they brought up this very issue. In particular, Ontario Pork was very vocal about the need to create a mortality insurance program for livestock. As many of you know, Ontario's pork industry was hit hard in the last year. The PED virus came to Ontario, including my home area of Simcoe County. The virus has nearly 100% mortality rate for piglets and young hogs. That type of death rate is devastating to a farmer, both emotionally and financially, to say the least. With that said, Mr. Speaker, I'll just wind up by saying it's about time the government step up and be there for our farmers when they need us most. Ontario farmers need us to pass this bill, and they need us to do it quickly. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to support Bill 40. It's long overdue. And I just want to say to the government who says, you know, we don't have our right to speak on this bill and we're holding it up, that isn't true. Farmers need to be heard. We're very much in touch with farmers in the rural community on this side of the House. And I just remind you, because you've been saying this on other pieces of legislation and during question period when we bring up the bribery allocations in the Sudbury by-election, that we need to get to work on other things. Well, you've got 5 committees of this legislature essentially closed. 5 of, what do we have, 7 standing committees? 9.
Needs to be said.
So over half of the committees are closed, they're not working, and as you know, Mr. Speaker, much of the work that needs to be done is work that needs to be done.
Yes.
To enjoy a productive debate about this bill, and we seem to have swayed off the bill per the standing orders. Speaker, may I suggest that if there is a bill to follow? Thank you.
Thank the member. In my opinion, the member was addressing the bill. Back to the member. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good ruling. Because I was referring to comments made by disturbing comments made by members of the government side. So, anytime you say that we're not working on issues that are important to people of Ontario, just remind you, you've got this place more than half shut down. Shame on you.
Exactly. Good job.
Thank the member. Comments and questions.